Good morning to all of you. Uh, as you know that the quiz will start now. The duration again is of 10 minutes. Today there is also another short question. So please write it down and scan and upload it as you did already yesterday. So let me send you the quiz. After 10 minutes, I shall start the class. Please try to submit the quiz on time. Okay. Okay. Just try to finish it on time. Okay. And I shall start today's class. First of all, tell me here, Somex, here you need to draw a plot a curve. So I don't think it will be possible in the type box or text box. Okay. If you still did not get the question, then for the sake of you, I say that here you need to draw a card or draw a plot something. It won't be possible in a text box. And tell me something, that fellow, I actually can't spell your name, SOAIPSA. Are you attending the class for the first time? Did you attend it previously also? Then how come you are attending it without joining in Google Classroom? Everyone should join in the Google Classroom, and I make it clear in my first class. Let me share my screen and I shall start today's class now. Okay? So, I don't know what is the issue at your end, but if you can do it, did you attend the quiz in last two quizzes? Quiz 1 and quiz 2? SOAIPSA, I am asking you one quiz. Then you should be allowed to enter the classroom, and there is no permission required. Once you have the class code, you can easily enter and you can do the class activities. Okay. Now let me start today's lecture. That is, if you remember, till yesterday, what we learned that there could be, we were discussing about multi attributes. That is how multiple attributes could affect our decision making or could affect the choice among given multiple choices and all. So, and those attributes could be mutual preference independent. Okay. So that is up to what we did, we discussed yesterday. Now, today we'll start with a theorem that is called Erard-Debreu's theorem. So it was actually it was formulated by actually Erard-Debreu in 1960. Okay, Erard-Debreu. And what he told there, he actually mentioned that if there are three attributes, say for example, x1, x2, and x3 are three attributes, those are mutually preferentially independent, then agent's preference, agent's preference behavior described by maximizing a function. How that function could be maximized? Okay. So the function that we are going to maximize is is so this is the function that we are going to maximize. Given n number of different attributes, we should sum up their value function for each different attribute, and we should be able to come up with a single value to decide that what to do next. Okay. So VI stands for the value function that refers to the attribute xi. Okay. So now, if you remember that in our last lecture, we were discussing about a single example, that is, we were discussing about a single example that was that the setting up an airport. Now, if you remember that we have dealt with three attributes. One was noise, another was cost, and the third one was depth. We have already shown that the all those three attributes are mutual preferentially independent. Okay. Now, once we are going to define that function, that is that value function, how it could be, if we want to regenerate the equation again, then how it could be done. Okay. So it could be done like, that is value of all the given all the attributes, that is noise, cost, and depth. Okay. Now the fact is that everything, well, first let me write down it, that is noise into 10 to the power 4 10 to the power 4 plus minus cost minus depth into 10 to the power 12. So this is going to be the expression. Now the fact is that every value is considered as to be negative as higher its value is less desirable or less preferable. Higher noise is less preferable, higher cost is less preferable. Similarly, higher deaths are also less preferable. Therefore, it is considered the negative term, or it is considered as a in the number line in the negative side. So, the higher it is, the less desirable it should be. Okay, and these terms, that is the multiplication with 10 to the power 4 or 10 to the power 12, are the weightage. Why? Because if you have noticed that the cost is in the unit of billions of dollars. Okay, now the noise should be in the unit of dB, decibel, and uh, the dates should be in the units of some hundreds or something, or micromole. Okay, the death count should be in the unit of micromole. Therefore, if you are going to add those down, then if you consider the death unit as micromole, it would be too less. So to make it additive, to give those same weightage as of the cost, we are multiplying it with these units. Okay, so this is all. Now the thing is that always that mutual preference independence does not hold. Okay, but even though the mutual preference independence does not hold, then also additive value may provide or may come up with a good approximation of the total estimator given all those attributes. Okay, now what we have so far discussed the preference with certainty. Now, what will happen if the preference, we have to define the preference with uncertainty. Now, once we are going to deal with preference with uncertainty, then the main difference, the underlying difference between preference with certainty and preference with uncertainty is that in case of preference with certainty, you have a definite value function. Whereas once the entire circumstances are uncertain, then the value function may not be able to represent the preference. Okay, so then we need to understand that what is the underlying structure of preference between lotteries. So this is the aim once we are dealing with the preference in the uncertain situations. Okay, now there comes something that is called utility independence, that is some given some set of attributes x mm, is utility independent of set of attributes y if preference between lotteries on the attributes in x are independent of that of lottery of in y. Okay, so then that is called the utility independence. So a set of attributes is a set of attributes is mutually utility independent if each attribute is utility independent of the remaining set of the attributes. Okay, then it calls the mutual utility independence. So these are the two terms that is actually you may look, and I shall ask you that I am not discussing entire each and everything in this topic, that is preference with uncertainty. It is written very well in your book. Please go through it and let me know in the next class if you have any doubt. You can also ask me via mail. Okay, I am not discussing. I have just given a brief overview that what you have to know in this part, in this topic. Now, our next topic that we are going to discuss is decision decision network. Okay, so what does decision network means? Decision networks actually represent the information about agent's current state, its possible action, and the resultant state and utility of the state. So, what does decision network consume of? That is agent's current state, then possible actions, then resultant state, and utility of the state. So these are the parameters of a network, and in the network those are represented as different nodes. Okay, so decision network actually works on actually if you remember base network, you must have studied it. You must be well aware of base network. So if you remember base network, decision network actually combines Bayesian network with additional node, okay, of action and utility. So in a decision network, there exist three different types of nodes. First one is chance node. Those are oval in shape. Okay. Now, what does chance node represents? Chance node represents the random variables about which the agent is uncertain. Okay. And that random variables should be associated with a conditional distribution. Now, if you consider the example of setting up an airport, you can see that there are the variables like the attributes. All the attributes are actually the variables about which you don't have any certain knowledge. Like noise, depth, and cost, all those are variables. You can't be definite about those. Okay? So those could be represented as chance nodes in your decision making. Then comes decision node. Decision nodes are rectangular in shape. Now, what does those decision node represent? Decision node actually represent the choices you with which you are going to select. You are given with a number of choices, and from among those you are going to select one, and those number of choices or the choice parameter, whichever you are going to choose, is actually represented by a rectangle. Similarly, in the same example I am just giving you, that if you remember that you are going to select a site to set up a yard. Okay. Now, there could be a number of choices given to you. Then from that n number of sites, you are going to select a single site to set up a airport. those n number of choices, that is the airport site itself, is the variable here or is the options that are given to you. So you have to take decision which site is going to be the airport site. This is why this would be represented as a decision node if you want to create a decision network over it. Okay. Then comes utility. Utility nodes does have diamond shape. Okay. Utility nodes have diamond shape and it actually represents agent utility function. And it has parent variables describing the outcome that directly affects the utility. Now let me give you an example and show you how those nodes could be, how can a decision network be built up. Okay. So let me show you for the same example, that is airport site construction. So we are going to have oval nodes. Those are the chance nodes. Let me construct those oval nodes first. So here we are going to have, as we have already mentioned, here we are going to have 3 chance nodes. First one is for dates, then noise, then cost. But what you see that you can't directly have those values. You can't directly have the amount of depth or the amount of noise or the cost. Rather, what you are going to have is these are dependent, say, on 3 different values, 3 different attributes. Like the first one is, say, you might have some definite information about air traffic. Then litigation. Then construction. So you might have some definite idea about what can the air traffic be, what could be the cost of litigation, and what do you want to construct or what have you planned, how big the airport should be, what the utilities should be present there and everything. Therefore you have have a definite idea about what you are going to construct. Okay. So from this only you can air traffic, no, the depth is directly dependent on air traffic. So once you know the air traffic, you may probably estimate the depth. Similarly, from air traffic may also cause noise. So from air traffic you can have an idea that how much noise could be generated. Similarly, you know the cost of litigation. So this is how you are going to deal with it. That is, your construction is also causing the cost. So litigation and construction are causing the cost. Therefore, if you have the ideas, these are the inputs, these are the actual inputs that of which you have direct values. Okay. But these are dependent on those inputs. So both are chance nodes, but these are the input chance nodes and these are dependent on the inputs. So These are the things. Now comes decision node. Construction shall got noise too. It is not getting noise. Construction is getting cost. Cost is dependent on construction. Now, this is the decision node, rectangular in shape, and decision node is about what you are going to decide, that is airport. So, airport side, it is going to have impact on all those chance nodes. It is going to have impact on dates. It is going to have impact on noise. And it is going to have impact on cost. So this is how the decision node is going to have impact on all those chance nodes. Okay. Now finally comes the utility node. That is finally there comes the utility node. So this is the utility node. This is the utility node and it consumes the value u. Okay. Now here you can see that utility, the value of utility is dependent on these attributes. So this is how the structure of your decision network should look like. This is how, if you want to decide, if you want to create a decision network on that example, this is how it should look like. There also exists a simplified structure of decision network. Okay. In the simplified structure, what it does is that chance nodes describing the outcome states gets omitted. These are the outcome states, that is dates. If these are the inputs, these are the outcome states, that is dates, noise, and cost. Okay. These outcome states get omitted. Let's omit it. Omit this. Let's omit this. Okay. And what we are doing, that utility nodes gets directly connected to the current state. That is, instead of these connectivities, now what we are going to do, that we are going to connect the utility node directly to the input states. Okay. So we have already connected the utility nodes to the current state, and here it was utility function initially. Now Since you are connecting the input to the utility nodes directly, therefore you are going to compute the expected utility in the U node. That is, in the utility node, instead of utility function, there will be expected utility or action utility function. And that decision node will also be connected to that utility directly. So this is the simplified form of your action utility of your decision network. Okay. So uh, construction shall not go to noise too. No, construction shall not go to noise, because construction noise we are not considering. We are considering only the flight noise. Will the weightage of death, noise, and cost be different for different problems? Not so, because weightage would be the same. Weightage would remain the same. Different, if this is not the problem, then those will not be the attributes too. If your problem is not setting up an airport site, then why should you consider date, noise, and cost as your attributes? If you have different problems, there will be different set of attributes. Okay. Decision node depends on utility or vice versa. What does decision node do actually? Decision node, you are given with a number of choices. For example, you have n number of sites given to you. Now for each site, you have to compute that utility. For example, you are given with three choices, three sites A, B, and C. For each site, you have to put the site A here and respective air traffic liquidation and construction cost or construction everything, and then you have to compute the utility. Again, you have to put site B there, and you have to again compute the expected utility. Again, you have to put the site C here, and with all those changed values, you have to compute utility again. So once you are having all the utility values, you have to take that one which is maximizing the expected. Okay. So you should take your decision on the airport side after computing the utility values for all the choices. That choice which is maximizing your utility, that you are going to choose. Okay. Now the thing is that here selection of airport site is the action. If you remember from the first class onward, uh, I am repetitively telling you that how to compute the expected utility and how to choose the correct action by maximizing the expected utility. If you remember, if you have forgotten, please have a look on it. Okay. So you have to select that option, or that action is chosen to be the optimal action that is maximizing that expected utility. Okay. Now, once you already have the decision network, you have to evaluate. Now, actions, as I have already told you, that actions are selected by evaluating the decision network for each possible setting of the decision. Once the decision node is set, it behaves like a chance node with evidence variable. Okay. Now, what is the algorithm behind it? Here, we are going to discuss about the algorithm behind the evaluation of decision making. So, what are the steps of the underlying steps of the algorithm? That is, set evidence variable for current state. Then for each possible value, of decision node, do the following steps, follow the following steps, that is set decision node to that value, compute posterior probability of parent nodes of compute and then and then the next step is return action with highest utility. Okay, so this is the algorithm of decision network. Now, is it clear to you? Is the algorithm clear to you? Do you know how to compute posterior probability? I think all of you know Bayes rule, therefore I am not. If you don't have any issue with it, then I'm not going to discuss it with you. That since all of you know Bayes rule and Bayes networks, therefore this algorithm won't be much difficult for you to understand. Oh, you don't know Bayes rule or Bayes network? Bayes rule actually does that you have some information about the prior probability. That is, there is an example that if it rains, you can see umbrella. Okay. Now, you have some prior probability, that is, given it rains, you are seeing the umbrella with a probability of 0.9. Okay. Now, you have to convert it into this is the prior probability given to you, and you have to convert it into posterior probability. That is, if you see an umbrella, what is the possibility that it is raining here? Okay. For that purpose, you have to know two independent. That is, what is the probability of raining in a random day? What is the probability of seeing umbrella in a random day? Those two probabilities you have to know. And then only you can convert it using this rule, that given there is umbrella, what is the possibility that it is raining? Okay. So this is how Bayes rule works. If you have forgotten it, you must have studied it in your earlier semester. If you have forgotten it, just have a recap. Okay. Now, you need to understand the difference between Bayes network and it. Here you need to compute the posterior probability. Okay. Given the utility function, what could be the air traffic litigation cost and construction? With given the airport site, and then you have to compute with those values, you have to again compute the utility function. This is how it is different from base network, because it is not only working with converting prior probability to posterior probability, rather it is also considering some utility values. It is coming up with some utility values given a number of choices. Okay. So this is how it is different. Now, so far, whatever we have discussed, we assumed that whatever the information is available is with us. Okay. So, but that is not the actual case. Here we know the example that I have given to you. We know the conditional probability that is given. It is raining. How much? What is the possibility of seeing umbrella? We are given with two independent probabilities. That is, what is the possibility of raining in a random day? What is the possibility of seeing umbrella in a random day? All those information were with us, then only we will be able to compute that posterior probability. But this is not the actual case. We don't always have all the information available with us. Okay? So then the fact that we have to deal with is called value for information. For example, you are visiting a doctor, okay? Or say anyone, some layman is going to visit a doctor. Now, you have some symptoms, you have some problems with your health, but the doctor must know what to ask. That is the vital question. What to ask, okay? This is value for information lies totally on that fact, what to ask. Doctor can't ask you each and every detail. He or she does not have that much of time. Okay? He or that doctor can't even ask you to go through all the diagnoses that are available. He must know that which diagnosis will lead to investigate or to address your problem further. Okay? That is why the doctor knows what is the specific question that he has to ask, what is the specific diagnosis that you should go through to address your problem. He can't prescribe all the possible diagnoses. Okay. For example, you are going with stomach ache, and he is prescribing you to go through an ESG, to go through some blood tests, some random tests, some like something like your scanning and every possible things. He can't ask you. He might ask you to go through a simple USG. Okay, but he has to know that scanning through or going through that procedure may give him an idea about your true problem or the true problem you are facing. Therefore, this is the value for information. You can't have entire information, but you should be able to find out the required information, the information required to address the problem. Okay, so this is what is called value for information. Now, this theory is known as information value theory. Okay, so you should know what information you have to acquire. So it actually, the information, the way you are going to acquire the information. For example, you are having some stone in your gallbladder. Okay. Now, once the information is gets acquired, Doctor might have thought of something else. Doctor might have thought that you are having an ulcer in your stomach. But after the scanning, going through the scanning, he realized that you are having an stone in your gallbladder. That is why you are it is causing a stomachache. Okay, but here what happens that the actual state does not change. That is, you were previously also having the stone in your gallbladder. You are also now having, after diagnosis also, you are having the stone in your gallbladder. The actual state has not changed. What changed is that doctor's belief. Doctor was previously believing that you are having some ulcer in your stomach. Now he is believing that the belief state, his belief states got changed, that you are, he is now believing that you have a stone in gallbladder and he has to address that problem. Okay. So once the information, with information, the actual state is never going to change, but the belief state is going to change. Okay. Now, how the information, the value of the information can be decided. Okay. So how much you are going to pay to acquire a particular information. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say it is given in your book only. You can go through it once again. But let me just make it simple. Okay. Say there is an oil company. Oil company, and it is going to purchase a few blocks. Say there are n number of blocks. N number of blocks means here blocks signifies part of some lands. For example, it is going to some desert, somewhere. Say it is going to Abu Dhabi, or it is going to Saudi Arab, and the lands are to be sold in block wise, and it is going to purchase say 100 blocks. Okay, or n number of blocks. Say for the sake of example, we are going to say that there are n number of blocks that oil company is ready to purchase. Okay, now it is also known that out of those n blocks, there is only one block that is having oil under it. Okay, and the cost of this oil is $C. Please remember, $C is the cost of the oil, cost of the oil under one, and only one block out of this n number of blocks, only one block does have oil, others are empty. Okay, although you are purchasing n number of blocks, but only one of them is having oil under it. Okay, now say what is going to be the cost of the information. What information? Say you are picking up a any random block. Say its number is third, say 3. Third block, you are picking up this block and employing an expert, a seismologist. Okay, seismologist, he can examine and tell you whether that third block has oil under it or not. Okay, now what is the $C is the cost of oil under one block, and only one block out of those n number of blocks contains oil in it. Rest of the blocks are empty. That is n minus 1 number of blocks are empty. Okay. Now, the fact is that say you are picking up the third block randomly, and you want to verify whether that third block consumes oil under it or not. What is the value for that particular information? What is the value for the information about some random block or third block on. Okay, let's try to compute it. Now you can see that how much you are going to pay the seismologist. Okay, now the fact is that there is 1 by, the probability is 1 by n that the third block will contain oil. So the probability of containing third block having oil is 1 by. Okay. Now if the third block does and if you want to purchase it, the cost of the block is going to be C by N. Okay. Therefore, the profit, if you purchase only third block after knowing that there is oil, so the profit is going to be C minus C by N. That is equals to N minus 1 into C by N. Okay. So this is what the cost, the profit is going to be if you purchase all the n number of blocks and the third block contains oil. Okay. So C by N is the cost of that block, and C is the profit that you are going to gain. And this is the entire profit once you identify that the third block is containing oil. Now, the third block, if it contains oil. Now, the rest of the possibility is that the block does not contain oil. Therefore, so the probability is n minus 1 by n that that particular block or third block does not contain oil. Okay. Now, then what is the company going to do? The company should not buy that block. With upon that information that the block does not contain oil, it should not buy that block, and it should bid for some other. Then what happened, that the possibility of some other block to have oil comes down from 1 by n to 1 by n minus 1 with definite information on third block that it does not have oil. Okay. So then the profit of that company reaches to C by n minus 1 minus C by n. That is equals to C by n into n minus 1. Okay. So this is what is going to be the profit once knowing that there is no oil. Once the company knows that there is no oil, this is the amount of profit that the company going to have. Okay. So the profit, overall profit is there is the possibility of oil having oil is 1 by n, which should get multiplied with minus 1 into C by N. Okay. 1 by n should get multiplied with n minus 1 into c by n. Okay? So, and it should be added up with n minus 1 by n and what you are going to see that the ultimate resultant outcome is C by A. So it is always going to be profit. The having the information should always give you profit only. It can't be loss. Why are you thinking that it could be a loss? We have considered both possibility that the block may contain oil and it may not contain oil. Is there any other possibility? Upon knowing that the block contains oil, there is some positive gain, obviously. Upon knowing there is no oil, there is also some positive gain. Okay? So there is no loss. And the overall profit is going to be C by N. If you remember, C by N is the cost of the block itself. Therefore, the information, the value of the information is equivalent to the cost of the block itself, or the cost of the information is equivalent to the cost of the block itself. Okay? So this much valuable the information is. Okay? So this is just an example. Okay? Now there comes some general formula for perfect information. Okay? Now, what is perfect information? If you are having some perfect information, how it actually gives you some benefit? That is why, Ranjan, that is why you have decided what is the value for information, and based on that you are going to pay the seismologist. Anyhow, at any cost, you are not going to pay the seismologist more than what the block costs itself. Are you going to pay the seismologist more than that? Then you will buy the block. Why will go pay the seismologist? Okay? Anyhow, there is no loss on the information. So now the some general formula for perfect information, that is what is perfect information and what is the general formula. Okay, so additional information, how much you are going to pay for additional information or some additional perfect information, here we are going to discuss about that one. Okay, now exact evidence about some random variable is actually the value for perfect information. Okay, so initially the agent will have some information with them. Okay, and according to that information, it is going to decide its best action. Okay, now if you remember the maximum expected utility, here this is the formulation of expected utility computation over optimal action. Alpha is the action here, optimal action or best action here. E is the evidence, that is the evidence that you already have, and this is computed with this equation. You please, if you forget it, please go through our first the content of our first class. Okay, So there it is given that how it is getting formulated and how we are going to decide this, how we are going to generate this equation. So this is how the expected utility of the optimal action given the evidence is being computed. Okay. So now the fact is that you already have the evidence E or this much amount of information. Now, when you are going to gain some additional information, that is EG, that is denoted by EG. Okay. What is the cost of that additional information will be? Now, once you are going to have additional information, and according to you are going to select your optimal action also. So this is how the formulation will be, the expected utility of that action will be. But what EJ is going to be, EJ is random, is a random variable which is currently unknown. Okay. So given current information E, we should average out all the possibilities and we should determine the value for information with this equation. Okay. Now the fact is that let me simplify it with an example so that you will be able to get that what that information actually reflects. Okay. Now the fact is that let's say that we have, well, let's simplify it with two choices. We have two choices, A1 and A2. Okay. We have two choices, A1 and A2. Now, say, let me give you an example. Say, you are driving a car, and you want to go through some path within the which goes throughout a mountain. Okay. Now there are two paths. You have two choices. So there are two paths. One is very rough, dirty, and risky. The other one is smooth, clean, and risk-free. Okay. If these are the two paths, say A1 is very clean, smooth, and risk-free, and A2 is very dirty, rough, and risky, you are definitely going to choose A1. Given the information or given the evidence, you already have the evidence that A1 is very smooth, risk-free, and clean, whereas A2 is very rough, dirty, and risky. So, given only this evidence, you are going to choose A1. Now, suppose you want to gather some more information, some information from satellite. Okay, to know the current situation of both the parts. That is, whether there is any landslide, whether there is anything else happened there, and you want to change your decision based on it. Now, that information that you are going to gain from satellite does not have much value here, does not add much value, because you anyhow are going to choose A1 over A2, because there is very less possibility that the path or the path A1 gets somehow disturbed. Okay. Whereas there is much more higher possibility that the path A2 got disturbed. Therefore, the current scenario or current situation, current satellite information does not have much value. Therefore, you are not going to pay for that information because it does not worth it. And based on that current information, your decision won't change. Okay. That is why that curve here, it is plotted here. This is the utility of the first path, and this is the utility for the first path, and this is the utility for the second path. Anyhow, the fast path should always be more preferable. It always have more preference. Therefore, no additional value is going to change the preference, and this is how you are always going to choose U1 over U. Okay. Now, then let me give you another. The path A2 remains the same, but now A1 is also another rough, dirty, and risky path. Both A1 and A2 are rough, dirty, and risky paths. Now, you have a patient with you, and you want to move him throughout that mountain to meet, to visit a doctor or to take him or her to the hospital. Okay. Now you have to travel throughout the mountain, and you have to choose any of those two paths. Then what happens? Then the information on that moment is much more valuable. Any of the path might be jammed or might have some disturbance on it, might have some landslides on it, might have some other disturbances on it. So, if you traveling by which path will make it easier to reach to the doctor is much more dependent on current information or additional information. So then you might be ready to purchase or to buy the information or to pay for that information to purchase the information from satellites. Okay. So this information actually both. Here you can see that U1 and U2 almost have same distribution, and you can prefer any one of it. Okay, based on the current information, any one of it. So those are equipreferable. And in this situation, you are ready to pay on the current information. Okay, or on the to buy the additional information. This is a third case. Third case is that, see, both the paths are rough, dirty, and risky. But it is summer time. It is not winter time, so or rainy season. So there is no chance of landslide or some other chances. But let's say that let's assume that it is summer time, and some path does have more scenic beauty. Okay, that path A2 does have, or the path A1 does have more scenic beauty. Then from the satellite information, you might know that this path is having more scenic beauty, and you may change your plan and may go through and you may follow the path A1. But the fact is that that information is not much vital. You may pay for that information, you may not be ready to pay for that information, or you may follow the earlier path only, that is, you have decided to follow A2 and you are following it, irrespective of scenic beauty and all these things. Okay. Although it is giving you some additional information or may be valuable to you, but it is not necessarily always be valuable. Okay. So these are the things, that is how the things are, how the value of information would be determined. So, okay, that is all for today's class. If you have any queries, you can ask me, and I shall now discuss the quiz now, and then move on and then finish the class. Okay. So, do you have any queries? Whatever I have discussed so far. If not, then let me discuss the quiz. Okay. Aditya, I can't take the quiz in the end of the class, because by the end of the class, we don't have always same time left by the end of the class. That is the first thing. The second thing is that by the end of the class, we plan to discuss the solution. If I give, for example, I open the quiz at 9:20 and I end it up at 9:30, will it be convenient? You are getting so much time. Now I have not yet discussed the solution, and you are having this much of time to submit. Even if it is late submission, I am going to consider. But once you are going to, I am just releasing the solution to you, I shall no way consider again any other response. Okay? Do you have any real system that uses these concepts, thoughts? Well, you can design a system, any system you can design. These, whatever I am showing you is only the examples. This could be the thing, this could be the thing, like that. You can always design a system based on some real life problems. Okay? I don't have any real system on it right now, but you can design, you are free to design on any real life problems. Okay? So these are the fact, and let me discuss the solution of the quiz right now. Now, the first question was which drug is preferred by considering the highest utility estimate. You can see this is having the highest utility estimate as 95%, and this is going to be considered. Okay. Then the qualitative probabilistic network would take decision based on stochastic dominance that we have discussed in our last class. Now, the theory that describes the ideal rational behavior of human judgment system is called normative theory, that also we have discussed in our last class. And according to framing effect, a lottery with a coin toss, that is with equiprobability, could be described to the players as you know, the framing effect always attracts the buyer or players with positive information. Therefore, it will be described that there is 50% chance of winning. Okay. So, right now I am following only Peter and Norwich book. I may give you some additional materials given the fact that you are very well, you can very well understand that Peter and Norwich book and you are following it. Okay. So, and one more fact is that I am going to give you an assignment within this week. That is, by Wednesday or Thursday, I shall upload the assignment in Google Classroom with a given time, say for example, 1 week. Okay? And you need to submit that assignment. That assignment is going to be, and you have to numerical assignments. Mostly numerical, might be some programming might also be there because I have not made the assignment yet completely ready. So it will be dependent what at that moment what I will decide to make there. Could be some programming, some programming may be there, may not be there, but numericals should be there. Okay. So this is the thing. Now, this is how then comes that in a yeah, the fourth question is undone. Then in a lottery, there are two choices. If there is that is 100% chance of winning $200 in a lottery. So here, since people are biased towards certainty, it calls certainty. If you are going to prefer A over B, then it calls certainty. Okay. Now, when you have a known probability of winning $200 and unknown probability of either winning 0 or 600, then you must going to choose A over B, and that phenomena is called ambiguity aversion, since people are biased to known probabilities over unknown probabilities. Okay, so and the seventh one is the it is I have already given you an example of sale, how the customer's estimation game makes high someone the seller making the estimation higher with the same product with the product with lower cost, and selling with higher cost only by making it making the estimation higher. That effect is called anchoring effect. Okay, so these are the things. Now there I have given you I have given you the problem where you are given with five choices A, B, C, and D, and these are the hospitals, and these are the treatment costs, and these are the survival rates. Okay, so which one you are going to choose, and I have asked you to draw a plot. Let me draw a plot here. Let me try to brief the problem here. Okay, so these are the two attributes. This could be this could be cost, and this could be survival rate. So this axis represents cost and this axis represents survival rate. Now remember, the higher cost is less the utility. Therefore, we should consider cost as negative. Okay, so here the negative values should be put here. So the fact is that here the question was that the cost of the treatment is 50,000, 60,000, 65, 35, and 55. So 50 to 35 to 55 is 35 to 65 is the range. Therefore, we may make it as we may make it as 65, then 55, then 45, then 35. All are in minus. And similarly, here survival rate also, in case of survival rate, what are the survival rate? That is, it varies from 70 to 83. Say this is 85, 75, 65, like that. Okay. So Now, can you plot it? You know, I am just giving you some example to plot it. That is, for A, it is 50,000 the cost and 75% is the survival rate. Similarly, for B is 60,000 is the cost and 70% is the survival rate. Okay. Now 50 and 75. So 50 and 75. So the point should be somewhere here. This is going to be A. Okay. A. Similarly, then comes 60 and 70 or 65 and 70. I forgot. Then comes 60 and 70, then 65, 73. 60 and 70. So it is somewhere 60 and 70 here. B. So you can see here A is strictly dominated over B. Okay. And then comes 65 and 80. 65 and 80. So 65 and 80. That is somewhere here. So this is C. Okay. This is C. So this is C, this is A, this is B, and cost is always treated to be negative. We should always want to minimize the expenditure, always, irrespective of the aim. Okay, if you want to buy a car, even if you want to buy a home, or if you want to buy some, or if you want to have a treatment, whatever the fact is, you should, anyone wants to get the best quality with minimum cost. Okay, anyone. Cost should always be put as negative. Once it is about earning, then the cost will be positive. For example, you are going to earn something. With doing this much of effort, you are going to earn this much of money. Then only the monetary value will be positive, because then you are going to earn. But when you are going to expend the money should always have negative value. You, any, irrespective of anyone, it might be Mukesh Ambani also, but he will also try to have a trade-off between the quality and the cost. He will also aim to buy the best quality product with minimum cost. Okay. Yes, positive cost graph will definitely, because then it will be much more lower, it will be higher, and like that. You can't get the same preference curve or same dominance law. Cost should always be negative. In the example that I have shown you in the previous class, there also cost was negative if you have followed it. Okay. Life over cost, that is different thing. That is entirely different thing. Here you are going to plot it. You are going to plot it over this card. Whatever you are preferring, that is, it is totally preferentially independent. Survival rate and cost are preferentially independent here. Where those two have no, you can choose for it if you have money. This is giving you maximum preference, maximum value. You may choose it. There is no conflict in it. But then you will go on to y-axis. Why will you see x-axis? If money does not matter to you, you will look only the most preferable value in y-axis or highest value of y-axis. Okay? Plot should never change. Plot should always be the same. Is it clear? Is it clear, Naresh? Okay. So this is how you are going to plot the rest of the things also. And this is how the plot should look like. Whoever has plotted in this way will be given full marks. Okay. So this is the solution of the quiz. And let's wind up the class today here. If you have any question, any doubt, you over email also. Okay. So have a good day. Bye.